Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Creative Juices. On today's episode, I'm going to be speaking to Vanessa Anderson, who is the founder of a newly released app called Indi Local. The purpose of Indi Local is to connect street food to the foodies of Northampton, also in Milton Keynes, and it's developing into further areas around us. Now, Vanessa has a really interesting background in terms of her creativity, and I don't know her particularly well. So today we're going to get to know her together and really find out what sparks creativity in her, where it comes from, where it started for her as a child, and how it's helping her develop her business today. So without further ado, here's the episode. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to Creative Juices and welcome to our very glamorous studio. We've got fans going, it's really warm today, so if we look like we're slightly melting on YouTube, just forgive us, people, forgive us. So the whole premise of this pod is really like to highlight how creativity comes in lots of different forms. It's not, I think a lot of people have these visions of what creativity is, and I've certainly gone through my sort of ups and downs with it. So we're going to go like right back initially to when you were a youngster.
Yeah.
And do you have any sort of early memories of being creative? Is there anything that stands out for you that makes you think, yeah, I think that makes sense to why I'm doing what I'm doing now? Like, what are your earliest memories of that?
I guess, my grandmother is an artist and she used to teach like fine art. So we'd always go to grandma's house and do the painting in the garden, that sort of thing. So I was always brought up around art. My elder brother is a musician. So we had like a piano in my parents' house, always playing piano. So I'm always listening to music, and that kind of got me into music. And I then got into dance. Again, I guess it's from the music side.
Yeah.
I enjoyed dancing.
Yeah.
So I did ballet, I did tap, I did jazz, I did everything. And I just noticed in myself that I enjoyed exploring being different.
Yeah.
So through my art, I'd be like, oh, how can I differentiate myself? How can I dance differently? How can I bring my own spice to what I do?
Yeah.
Probably one of my earliest memories, and it's not really early. It's not early at all. It's actually in primary school. But I was like, when was
that's early. That's early.
Yeah, there was.
Honestly, we're going to have to start this podcast so many times. Paul's just walked in because Vanessa has never had, everybody, a yellow bourbon coffee.
Thank you so much.
This is an Indi Local first. They're not a pop-up, but they're amazing. So shout out. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yellow bourbon, first time.
Okay.
Live opinion, no pressure, Vanessa. She's nodding, yeah. For those of you who are listening and not watching, yummy.
Yum.
So before we were, as I say, not rudely interrupted because we've been bought drinks. Thank you, Paul. You were saying, your older brother's a musician. You were surrounded by music. Your grandmother is an artist.
Yeah.
So there's obviously creativity in the family, and then you started to see it channeling into dance.
Yes, yeah. So I'm going to go off piste on the dance piece, but I was talking about an early memory in primary school, and I remember that there was a boy band. There was like a young boy band, and I think I fancied one of the guys. And this was at the time when like people had MSN, and you had like the avatars.
Yes, MSN.
Yeah,
the days.
And I fancied one of these boys, and he's probably going to know who he is. But whatever.
Oh, hey.
And I thought the way to flirt with him was I'd make him a little avatar on paint.
Cute.
So I drew this like face for him to put as his MSN profile picture. And then his band basically said like, oh, that's really cool. Could you do like the whole band and we'll make that an album cover? Bearing in mind, we're all kids.
Yeah.
So, but they were actually good musicians. So I was like, yeah, okay. So I drew the whole team, the whole band, and they had that as their album cover. So I was like, I'm an artist.
It's official. My art has been published.
Yeah.
MSN though, can we just take a minute for MSN? Like when you're like you're messaging the boy that you fancy and you're like, he's typing. Oh, it was so rubbish, but so bring it back, man. That's what we need.
That was the start of like social connection online.
Yeah.
And like a lot of what we do now is stemmed from chatting after school, going home, chatting.
I was obsessed. I remember being like, Mum, can I just... And my mum and dad were quite like, no, you can have an hour on it or 45 minutes on it and that's it. You've got to do your homework and whatever.
Yeah.
any chance I would get to be on it, and like late at night I'd be logging on, like seeing who was online and who was awake, like all the like naughty kids. I'd be like, yeah, like I loved it. Those were the days.
Yeah.
So you said then with dance, you did a mixture. You did ballet, you did jazz, and you actually, as you've gone later into life. I didn't know this about you until very recently, but you then learned how to do pole dancing and how to teach. Now, talk to me about this, because I watch people do it and I'm like, there's absolutely not a chance I would be able to hold myself on a pole.
It is. I mean, you watch a pole video and you're like, oh my God, she's so graceful. Look at, she's spinning around the pole and how is she putting herself upside down? But behind that camera is a girl going, like you're throwing yourself upside down using, sometimes you might just be holding onto the pole with your armpit, or there's some moves that you're like gripping onto the pole with like just nothing. Which is why, by the way, that pole dancers wear so little, is your skin is what's going to save your life. And if you're wearing cotton or material, you're just going to slide. You can't stick. But yeah, pole. So yeah, I was always in dance. I did ballet, I did jazz. I started cheerleading before I did pole when I was like in, I guess, secondary school. One of my friends just did cheerleading and I was like, that looks cool. I want to give that a go. And I trained with Milton Keynes Cheerleading Academy. Shout out.
Shout out, guys. I did not train with Milton Keynes Cheerleading Academy, just to clarify.
Other groups available.
You would not want me in your cheer squad.
And that was a lot. It was like army training. Very surprisingly, it is, or maybe not surprisingly, you would drill stuff time and time again. And coach were always really tough on you. Like, if you don't point your toes, if you don't do this, like, we're a team, you've got to keep up with the team. So that was creating you would train for like 6 months for a 2-minute routine on the floor. And you'd drill hours and hours and hours on end. And we were all like young, sprightly. So I did that during secondary school. Went to university and joined the university squad. I started coaching that squad because when you go to university, you have a lot of different people from a lot of different places, but people who joined the cheerleading squad were doing it because it was something different, whereas I did it because I did cheerleading at home and then I wanted to continue. So I did cheerleading, coached that, finished university, came home, and I was trying to find a cheerleading squad local here. I joined a squad and everybody was like 15 and I was like 21 and I was like, maybe I need to move on. So I was find dance classes in Northampton. And I stumbled across pole and I was like, whoa, I don't know if this is for me. Like, I'm so used to doing like ballet and this sort of thing. And I went, and everybody that does pole says you get addicted from day one. Like,
I've heard that.
Yeah, you try it. It's really intimidating before you go. Yeah. The first class takes a lot of energy and courage to go. But then once you're in that class and you're like, oh my gosh, I can make something beautiful just by spinning around a pole. You get addicted. And I naturally, I think it came quite naturally to me because of my dance background.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Do you get many people do it who've never danced? Because like the thought for me of like walking into a pole class, like I am not a natural dancer. I'm quite strong, like I train, but I don't have the strength to like, I'm still doing like assisted pull-ups. So like I can't hold my body weight. So I think, I would find it really like intimidating, just the thought of how am I going to do,
I bet I could make you do cool tricks. We're going to try this one day.
Maybe we will,
I think
everyone keeps saying that the people I talk to, I mean, we're going to get on to what you're doing now in a second, but everyone keeps saying that I should go with the people I've spoken to and try doing what they do and sort of film it. So watch this space. Maybe we'll do that. Yeah. Maybe you will see me being taught how to do pole dancing. We may break the internet.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited.
I'm not sure anybody is ready for that because
they are so ready. They've been watching you eat your breakfast and they're ready now to see.
Oh, they've watched me do all sorts. Tissues up my nose, breakfast, pole dancing is next maybe. Who knows? We'll blend marketing and pole dancing into one. So there's a really interesting thing I find with dance of any sort of form, because I've never done it, but like you alluded to with the cheerleading, there's that military drilling sort of disciplined element to dance. So to become really good as a dancer, I'm not even talking professional level, but just to become a really good, competent dancer, you have to practice, you have to commit to it. There is quite a regimented side to dance that a lot of people don't see. We see with things like Strictly Come Dancing and the things that are on the TV, how hard work is, but it's interesting. It's an interesting combination of skills that you're now using slightly differently. I think probably some of the things you would have done in dance with subconsciously will be helping you do what you do today.
Yeah, I was thinking about this before I came. I was like, how does dance translate to creativity and like my career now? And one of the things that I noticed was like when you're choreographing a piece and you want to film that piece, you're really you're looking at lines, you're looking at shapes, you're looking at capturing the right angles. And I grew really obsessed with making sure my lines looked right. And that kind of transposed to videography. And so I started filming my friends dancing, and I'd be like, getting low and doing different sort of angles. And because I always wanted to get the best shot, and that naturally became something that I carried on into my career, because I then started one of my first businesses was a videography. I'm very amateur. Like, I had my iPhone, but I had a property developer, and he was like, I'm looking for a videographer to follow me around with a camera. And I was like, I love doing videography. I'm not a pro or anything, but it was just following around somebody with a camera. And I carried that knowledge of how to capture a person on screen and making sure all the lines looked right.
Leading lines, as George would call them. George is probably nodding lines. In the corner. Yeah.
That's it. And that dance element and filming girls dancing transposed into filming property.
But it's so like, and this is one of the things I think creativity sits in so many areas of our life, and actually it evolves as we get older. So for you as a young child, you were surrounded by music, art, dance, like they're very like traditional forms of creativity, but it's evolved through your career into something that sits into like the world we live in today really well, but maybe wouldn't be classed as, some people might not even think about what you do as creative. I certainly do. So I think it is for sure. So you actually then, let's make sure I've got this in the right order. So you went to uni and you've got a real mixture. So you studied marketing and business, didn't you, with French?
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to ask you about the French. And then you studied in Lyon, didn't you?
I did.
For a year. So how did you go from sort of school into deciding that was what you were going to study? What happened there? Is there a background?
The French part was, I loved my French teacher. Again, language is sort of an art to me.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
You hear people speaking and you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. Like, how can a language be beautiful? I would hear it and you would see beauty. Yeah. So I fell in love with my French teacher. She was just so lovely, and she really encouraged me to push it further. And I just thought, I want to do something that I love, which was French. But then I also had the background of dad was in business. I always wanted to kind of follow his footsteps and have my own business one day. So I was like, I'll find a degree where I could do both. French and business, and marketing was like my major. So of all the business things, finance, accounting, marketing was like the fun thing that I really enjoyed the psychology of why people are influenced. And I don't know if that comes from, like, I really like, it's not that I like it, but I'm very in tune with how somebody's feeling. I'm very empathetic. I can read someone's face and say, oh, okay, I need to tone it down a bit, or I need to like be more energetic. So I try and like match the energy. And that really tied in well with marketing, understand why people are influenced, why people buy stuff. Really like closely linked with,
so your dad's business is Business Net Solutions, so software development, and leading on to what you're currently doing now. This all just strings together so nicely. You've got like a perfect little story that develops. But there's a huge part of having marketing knowledge, because you work in your dad's business, don't you? You're a part of that business. So having that knowledge is key to developing software as well, because the like you say, a lot of marketing is actually about why people do what they do. It's very psychological. It's about, why do we behave the way we behave? Why do we make the decisions we make? Why do we want things to be so easy to use? Software, user experience is huge. So you then came out of uni, did you go straight into working with your dad, or what was the journey from there?
My first job after uni, I was marketing manager for an oil and chemicals company, which sounds really, really cool. But when you're somebody who's very artsy and very like creative, it's like, how creative can I be selling
about oil?
Yeah. And I won't talk too much about it, but I really struggled with the fact that I couldn't be creative. It was like, I am designing jet wash fluid.
Yeah, there's only so much. Yeah.
And so, I really, I realised, hold on a second, this isn't what I want to do. The marketing part I really loved, but that's just a title. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed. And that's then when I said, well, actually, there's a bit more to it. There was a bit of drama in the company, and I was like, why am I working for somebody else's company who... There was a lot of stress, and I was like, I'm too young for this much stress. I have my own family business. I might as well get stressed at my family business.
Yeah. Stress that you're familiar with.
Yeah. And so I said to my dad, I was like, I have watched your business grow. I really enjoy what you do. Can I get involved in some way? And he was like, well, we're all a bunch of developers. None of us do any talking to clients. We don't like talking to clients. You can help with that. And so, I was basically brought in to schmooze.
Love it. Yeah. Perfect.
Schmooze and create a bit of a character behind the brand, which I don't think I did very well. It's software at the end of the day, and it's enterprise software, which you can't be bubbly. And I'm a naturally bubbly person.
Same, yeah.
And when your product is enterprise software, there's only so many bubbles you can have before people are like, what? What are you selling here?
Yeah.
So,
It's a lot of it is about, and you talked about it with the previous company as well. Sometimes we are just not a good fit. Like, it doesn't mean we're not good. It doesn't mean we're not skilled, and it doesn't mean we haven't got the right skills to actually do what that company has hired us to do. But someone in a director role in a previous job of mine, I was going through some real conflict in a company I was in, and I was similar to you. I wasn't being able to be creative, and I was just getting no, we can't do that. We can't try that. And I got really frustrated, and she just said to me, she was like, Hannah, you might not be a good fit for this business, but this business also might not be a good fit for you. It goes both ways. It's not like, because I think we get very hung up on, it's me, I'm the problem, I'm not doing a good job like you, that I didn't do it very well. Like, sometimes it's just not the right time, not the right environment. Are you still working in your dad's business?
Yeah, so I still do both, which is a juggle. Again, the two businesses are similar but different. They're both software businesses at heart. One is enterprise and one is food.
Yeah.
So I have very different personalities between both. So this is, you're seeing my more creative, expressive side, but in my other business, I am very much like
corporate conversations. Yeah. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I do think there is an element of business that is slightly changing, but in tech, in particularly quite male-dominated tech industries, that's going to take some time. I think there are some women like yourself really like trailblazing in areas and developing tech companies that allow for that creativity, that maybe slightly more feminine energy, that, and I mean feminine, that, you know, that can apply to men as well, just that more like empathetic, that more bubbly side of things. So we're going to talk about your current bit, the current like big project, which is Indi Local. So this is your business, this is your baby. Just tell everyone who's listening, I know what you guys do, but for those who are listening, what is Indi Local in a nutshell?
So Indi Local is an app to help you find street food trucks and local pop-up events near you. And it's basically Google Maps for these things. You open up, it knows exactly where you are, and it will show you today where everyone is, or you can select a different day of the week and say, oh, what's going on Saturday, and the map really changes. Cool. And then you can click on people's profiles, you can see where they're going to be, so you'll have like a schedule just for them. And we've got various different features that we're bringing out to recreate what I call the ice cream man effect. Okay. You know, when you're sat at home and you just hear the or whatever.
The other day, didn't he? He came to the office and we were like, the ice cream.
That's it. You didn't want an ice cream, but then you hear it and you're like, now I want an ice cream. So I was like, how do I recreate this with food trucks? And I was like, oh, that's pretty easy. I'll just send a notification to users when a food truck's nearby. So it comes from a personal need. the backstory is actually one day my partner and I, we were too lazy to cook. I say one day, this happens like many times
I can
a week.
relate so hard to what you're about to say now.
And it's like a Friday night and I can't be bothered to cook. What do we do? And you think for ages and then you're like, oh, do you know what? We'll just drive to McDonald's. Don't know how to say that.
Mackie D's or yeah.
So you end up driving there and we ordered our food and I said, do you know what? Let's at least take it to the local park.
Nice.
Make a date night of it without McDonald's.
Yeah.
So we go to Upton Park and when we get there, there's this food truck and he's selling wood-fired pizzas and I can see his oven in the thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, if only I knew you were here, I would have bought from you.
Yeah.
And then I was like, how am I going to find out where he's going to be?
Yeah.
And most of these businesses, they just pull up at the side of the road and hope that people turn up. You can't Google where they're going to be.
No, you can't actually.
You can't, you can't really like go on social media to search for them.
No.
Because you need to know what you're searching for. You need to know their brand name. And then even once you get on social media, you're bombarded with everyone else's advert. So I was like, I'm in tech. I understand how to build apps. I love food. I'm going to do something about it. And yeah, I basically leveraged my existing team in the family business and said to the guys, okay, whenever you've got a spare moment and you're not working on projects, can we like build this app? So that's kind of like how it started. Amazing. I don't think you even asked me the story.
No, that was my next question. So that always happens as well. I ask people and then they naturally go into my next question. It's absolutely fine. So it's classic example of, the kind of businesses that you would see, and we may see you one day, Vanessa, on like Dragon's Den being like, there was... This occurred as a problem. This was always happening, but there was no way you've fixed a problem that nobody else has yet fixed. Yeah. Because I'm assuming there's nobody else doing what you do because there was no solution.
That's it. I mean, after doing a bit of market research, there are people who've tried, and there are people popping up now that are copying, and my vendors who have signed up to my app, they've messaged me and they've been like, somebody's trying to copy your app. They've just launched. They're trying to poach me, and I've been like, at the beginning, it would hit you in the face. You're like, oh my gosh, there's another competitor. Whereas I'm like, no, do you know what? I'm focusing on my own lane. I really believe in the way that we are building the community, which I think is the hardest part to do in tech.
Yeah, for sure.
It's easy to build an app. Anyone could build an app, but to sell that app to people and to help them understand why you're doing it and how the outcome they're going to get, that takes again a bit of creativity. At all. And they're like, buy my product.
Here's an app, take it.
Yeah. And then people are like, what does it do? There's no credibility behind who I'm buying from. And that was something that was really, really important to me. That I was like, this type of product has to be community first. Otherwise, it's not useful if there's no community. So I spent a lot of time warming up that community, meeting people in person.
Yeah, you really like went everywhere, didn't you?
My waistline.
Yeah, I was like, how?
I'm dedicated to the cause. Like, in order to build a street food app, you've got to try the street food, you've got to meet the vendors, you've got to speak to them, you've got to hear their problems. And really, they were the ones who shaped the app. Was
can imagine.
Hearing their feedback and like, what actually is the problem? What is hard for you? What is good for you? What works well in your business? And so I really, listening to your customers is the most important thing that any product-based business or serve anything really is just listen to your customers.
I bang on about that all the time. Like all my content is like, know your audience, get to know them, get under their skin, talk to them, ask them. Like they're the people who are going to answer your like biggest questions really. So I just love that how it started. Like the story of how it started is brilliant because I'm that person, like you describe it in the content as like you go to your fridge and you're just like, oh really? And I'm not a good cook. Like I can. I also have lots of dietary requirements. So I'm like, can't be bothered. Like, what do I do? And there's that element of just busy day, really like tired, just want to eat really good food, but you don't want to have to go through the rigmarole of preparing it. And I just think the idea of, I've downloaded the app and just, it's so easy to use. Like you go in, you put your day in, like if it's today, you can see who's about, you know where to go. I just think I think it's brilliant what you've done. I think a lot of people, me included, will want to know this, but you say it's easy to build an app. I wouldn't have a clue where to start. So can you just give us a bit of a high level idea of like, where did you start? Like what's the process of going from, right, I've got this idea.
Yeah.
It needs to be in app form, because you started with a website, didn't you?
Yes.
And then moved to an app. So talk us through that process, if you don't mind.
Okay, so one of my biggest things for building any sort of software is you want to be as lean as possible. It's so easy to be like, I want to have all the features straight away, and you've got to be really strict with yourself. Say like, what is the core product? What is going to be the most valuable thing that people are going to come to this app for? And it's not like the cute buttons or the whatever. It's the functionality of, I want to find something that's going on. So I was like, okay, what's the quickest way I could do this? And what I did was I basically put a form on my website, and I said, hey, if you're a food truck or an event organizer, fill out this form. Tell me what your event's called, what date is it on, time, and I'll just put all of your events in on a map with pins. And that was what we call MVPs, your minimum viable product. So that was very simple. I say very simple.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, mind blown.
And then I guess the next step is choosing the type of technology that you're going to work with. And when it's enterprise software, you're like, okay, it's probably very restrictive on the types of mobile apps that they're going to use. So a lot of the businesses that we build apps for, they're like, we strictly use iPhones, we strictly use Samsung.
Yeah.
And so you've got like a brief. Whereas when you're building something that's for the masses, you have to say, okay, I need something that's going to work on every single device type, some people might use it on their phone, some people might use it on their desktop. So then I choose the technology and say, right, it's got to be a web app.
Yeah.
It's got to work on all platforms. Which is actually much easier to build a web app than it is to build a native app. I don't know how much jargon I'm giving here.
No, go for it. Keep going. No, you're fine.
But you're essentially building a website that looks like an app.
Yeah, it's almost like a small website.
Yes, that part actually is quite interesting. A lot of people have said to me, like, how did you know what to design? Like, did you go to a designer? Truth is, the whole app is literally, even my logo, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say when I'm sat in this creative agency, I did it on PowerPoint.
Oh, wow.
I'm so sorry.
PowerPoint. Don't tell Paul that. Blimey. He'll never speak to you ever again. You'll go up to him in the gym and he'll be like, no, sorry, not today.
And the reason
that's amazing,
is I needed speed. I was like, I've got this idea. Someone's going to take it. I need to work quick. So I was like, what's the quickest way to do it? Well, I don't have money to throw at a design agency.
Yeah.
I'll just go on PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Get the very outline on PowerPoint, take it to my tech team and say, this is what I want it to look like. These buttons are pretty. We'll go to a design agency down the line, but let's just get it quickly. And that's what we did. So everything that you see is, there's a PowerPoint on my computer.
I love it. No, but don't you just think, I'm a real believer in like removing the bullshit from things. So like, that's how you started. That does not mean, I mean, Indi Local will not be that in a couple of years' time, probably 5 years' time. It will evolve. And what Indi, I don't know how you would in app tech world, how you would call it, but this is like the very first iteration of Indi Local. Like there's so much that's going to happen. And I think the fact that you've gone for it, it's working, it works, it's working for the vendors, it's working for the people who use it. To be clear, you launched the app 2 months ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it's very, very new.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's listening who loves like street food and pop-ups, like download it, Indi Local in your app store. It's really easy to use. I went straight in last night and was like, oh, where could I go at the weekend? Like thinking ahead as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't be embarrassed about that at all. I think it's really, we all start somewhere, and not every business starts with like really sexy design, because that's not reality.
One of the things that I learned from other tech founders was, if your first version of your app doesn't make you cringe, then you've launched too late. And I really stuck by that. And I am a perfectionist, which is questionable when you look at some of my stuff. But I used to spend so much time being like, it's not perfect, this isn't right, can we just tweak that to the right a little bit? And the guys would have to remind me and be like, Vanessa, you said you wanted to be lean. Stop sweating over where the button is. So I have to constantly fight that like perfectionism in me. And also when your audience is so big, like I feel sometimes so vulnerable that I'm saying, look at my stuff. But you just have to be quick. You have to not be perfect.
That's a big part of being creative. A huge part of being a creative individual, no matter how it comes out in you, is vulnerability is massive. No matter what you do, that app, you have designed that, you have envisioned it, you've brought it to life. It's a vulnerable place to say, there you go. Like for me, if I produce a vlog and I put that out into it, that's unfiltered insight into my day-to-day life. So some people will be going, oh, what an idiot, like get her off, she's so rubbish. Like, but if we push through it and do it, like you'll look back and you might cringe slightly, but you'll be like, I fucking did that. And look where we are now. So like, it's nice to have that unpolished product at the beginning. I look at our first website and I literally want to be sick, and it's not even that bad, but I did it in 24 hours on Wix, and I'm not a web designer, but I'm
still on Wix.
Yeah, but we start where we start, and then in comparison now, our website is like, I look at it and I'm like,
it's really
that's
good.
Ours. Like what? Like, don't look at the old one. If you know how to look at people's old websites, have fun.
I want to admit something, actually.
Go for it.
Should
I be scared of what you're about to admit?
I copied a little bit of the way that you presented your timeline on your website.
Oh, really? That's
I was very inspired. Like, when I think about where I find inspiration, it's from other businesses that I admire. And I'm like, they look like they know what they're doing. I really appreciate. And you had a little timeline and it talked through your story. And I was like, freaking love that. And I was like, how can I recreate this without being too obvious?
Take it, man. Take it. There's much worse things you could steal from us, so take it. And we've probably stolen that from somebody else. We've probably looked at something and that looks nice. This is another thing that I always find quite interesting with, again, the topic of being creative. It's really hard to say what's original these days, because
everyone's inspired by everybody else, and you can't say you're not. And this is the thing with dance as well. It's a huge thing in dance that you copy someone else's moves, and some people don't like it because they're like, you're copying me. But sometimes, as long as, again, in dance, it's a big deal to like credit the person that you've copied, and if you don't, then it's like, oh, that's not cool. And I find it a nice thing when somebody says like, I love how you do this, and then they replicate it and then they tag you and say, look at this thing that I did because I saw it on her. And I think as creatives, you appreciate other people's art. And for me, it's like, what story are they telling? Is that similar to my story? Is it, can I relate to that? And that inspires my ideas. I don't think it's a bad thing.
It's a massive compliment. We've had instances where Paul has seen content that's gone out that has started to look a little bit like ours, and he's like, whoa, not cool, that's ours. And I'm like, but it's not, because we don't own it. We don't own the colour light blue. We don't own the dots that we use on our social media.
I really love those dots.
I love the dots, man. Good intro, Paul. And it, the things that make our brand recognisable, we actually don't own them. If someone spun up and was called the Brady Creative, I'd have a problem. Because I'm like, well, A, is your name Brady? B, back up. But there's a lot that we don't own. But I always say to Paul in those situations, I'm like, take that as a compliment. Because number one, they're not doing it as well as us, so don't worry. And B, they've clearly taken inspiration from us. So like, just take that as a well done. Like that we're clearly, if you're inspiring other people to do similar, you're doing something right. So
exactly.
Just like lean into it, but don't let people take the piss, obviously. I find it quite interesting, your form of creativity. Like if someone said to you now, because you've studied languages, you danced a lot as a child, you were surrounded by quite traditional creativity as a child, you've then studied business, marketing. Like business is not something that people would class as creative, but it is massively. Marketing, obviously. So you've got software development in there, you've got app development. If someone said to you like right now, like what's your biggest creative strength in what you're doing right now, what would you say? I've never asked that question before. That's a new one.
talk to people and adapt to situations. Okay, this is kind of like, I'm teetering off the creative. It kind of like interlinks, but the way that you present yourself online in real life, there is some creativity there, because I really value people who are true to themselves. They are exactly as they are. But I also really value when people can adapt to situations, mimic the energy in the room. And that's a creative skill. And I think in Indi Local, I've had to really nail talking to all types of different people. I'm not just speaking to food vendors. I'm speaking to foodies. I'm also speaking to like the business side, the tech people, the investors, the business advisors. So again, there's a very different side of me. Like everyone sees on Instagram, like, oh, she's all fun and eating food. But then like there's the other side of me where I'm like suited and booted and presenting to a room of investors. And I have to, I don't want to say the word creative because I am creating, a different, It's and I'm still me, but I'm just these are you pick the right version of me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I've got an old boss who says he's basically spent his life putting different hats on for different situations.
Yeah.
And he's naturally quite an introvert, but you would never know that if you'd ever come across him in business. And he was like, and when I get home, I just take all the hats off.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can so relate to that.
That's me.
Because I think you're quite similar just from speaking to you today, like quite extrovert in your demeanour, really like bubbly, very personable. But there will be another side to you that's a bit more serious, that's a bit more, you're having to negotiate, you're having to talk numbers, you're having to talk vision of the business. So we do have to switch.
Yes,
And there are people who just cannot do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, this is me. And off we go. So
my partner is very much that person. Like if he doesn't like what someone's saying, you can tell. And I'm like, babe, please just at least smile.
Like written all over. I'm I don't know if I am that person. I've got a parent, I'm not going to name which parent, I won't do that to them, who's very like, you know exactly what they're thinking. And I'm like, just a little, like you said, like just the eyes go. And I suppose with Indi Local then now, so you're talking to investors, you're looking at sort of fundraising for the business. Just talk us through what the next sort of stage is. So apps launched, brilliant, but what comes next? Obviously building the community. What's the plan for the next couple of years?
Yeah, so it was a very conscious decision to launch in Northampton. And actually when we first launched, people were like, oh, this is a Northampton app. And I was like, it is technically because it's just in Northampton. But that was a deliberate strategic decision to say, I want to capture this market, improve my concept here and make sure that it's a viable thing. And once I see it work here, then I will expand out. So that was always part of my plan, was to grow it. Naturally, it's already started growing. When we had before we even had the app launched, we had a wait list, and I just said, sign up to find out when we launch. And the people were signing up from all over the UK. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is way bigger. Like, I knew I wanted it to be big, but I didn't realize that people were finding us from afar. So the plan really is, I feel like I still am capturing Northamptonshire, Milton Keynes. Northampton is actually a really independent. I love Northampton. Yeah. I'm from Milton Keynes originally, and I am proud of both Milton Keynes and Northampton. But Northampton has a really indie vibe, like lots of independent businesses, lots of like cool, quirky places, and people are more. They're used to seeing like the independent culture, so it's worked really well here. We have a total of I think about 85 different vendors, and the majority of them are from Northampton. Yeah, we have so many. We have so many. But
that's amazing that you've got that many. Like it's and this is the thing. Like there'll be a lot of people out there that don't even know that there's that many vendors out there that exist. It's one of the things I love about Northampton. I'm from Coventry, but I just love how much we embrace that small, like say, independent businesses and people who are just, particularly on the food side, like people who are just creating really great food and they're taking it to people. Yes. Or they're trying to take it to people, and like apps like yours are gonna help them do it. So the growth of it in locations then, but how does the whole investor side of things work? Because I've always looked at that world and gone, whoa, what do you do? Like, just go, can I have some money, please? Like, How's that going?
So I'm talking with investors, but I'm not actually actively raising, although this is debatable on which stance I'm doing. So obviously it is a business at the end of the day, but currently nobody pays a penny.
Yeah.
And that's a very deliberate move. And I want to grow as quickly as possible. I don't want any barriers to entry. We had a really crappy summer. So a lot of our vendors were struggling. And I said, do you know what? I can make it free for as long as I can.
Yeah.
But then there comes the question of, okay, right, how am I going to keep this going?
Yeah.
You look at the numbers and you're like, okay, I've got developers to pay for. I've got like various hosting fees. There's stuff you've got to pay for.
Making the content.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so you evaluate the different ways of making money. And when your main source is meant to be from subscriptions and the subscriptions are free, you're like, okay, I need to think of alternatives. And I was actually approached by investors and they were saying, this looks like it could be something really big. We want to help you. It's a conversation of how much money do you need to make that business grow to this size, and therefore what is the value that you put on that amount of money. And that's the percentage that you give away of your business. And as a founder, it's really hard to say, oh my God, I'm going to give my business away to somebody I don't know, but I need the money. And then going backwards and forwards from saying, well, actually, we're growing at a pace. The value could come somewhere else as well. Speaking to investors is something that I've studied through podcasts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet there's a lot of really great content out there.
A lot of great business podcasts out there that when I'm washing up, when I'm walking the dog, any spare time I'm showering, I'm listening to some business guru who's done it before, and I learn a lot from other people's stories. It is scary. My first proper investor pitch, which I'm kicking myself that I wasn't actively raising, because there were people in that room that wanted to give money, and I was like, I don't know if I'm
not ready for it.
Yeah, and you don't want to raise money when it's the wrong time. You've got to do it at the right time. Numbers on the spot is like my biggest weakness. And if someone's like, oh, what percentage of this money and blah, blah, and I'm like, oh gosh, I need my calculator.
Yeah. I do the same.
I still need to get used to that. But yeah, I guess it's just part of business. You have to put yourself out there and say, we are going to be looking for money at some point, and to the right investor. Because that's another thing, it's really important to me that the person or people who invest are right for the business. It would be terrible for the wrong person to invest and have the wrong intentions. Like, Indi Local is so focused on the people that I'm trying to help. It's great food, it's finding great food, but it's also the people. And I've built up such a relationship with those people that anybody else who joins the business must appreciate that I'm here to help, these people.
There's very much two sides of it, isn't there? You're helping people find great food that they don't have to cook, that they can also have an experience. Because there's something to be said for like rocking up at a pop-up and just watching the independence of it and how small it is, and then them just giving you this great tasting food, and you're like, oh, you've just made that like there. Like there's this real I can't explain the feeling of it, but it's very community based, isn't it? It's like something about feeding people is really important in our society. But then the other side of the app is that you are massively advocating for these independent pop-ups and these who need help, because it's really hard, particularly in the climate that we're in today. Encouraging people to go and spend their money with these people takes a bit of work. So I think, in all businesses, it's important to get the values of your investors right, but there's a really important thing in your business that you would never want to lose to people who just don't see it. But you're quite laser focused on it, so I very much doubt you'd ever let anyone in who's not. There's a tenacity to you that I can see, like that little glint in your eye that's like, no thank you, not today. But yeah, it's one day and you'll be on Dragon's Den pitching it, and all of them will invest, and I'll be like, I interviewed her. She was on our podcast.
First
when it was
podcast.
2 months.
This is my first.
The premiere for Indi Local. I love it.
And actually very comfortable. Like, I turned down podcasts before because I just didn't feel comfortable speaking to the presenter, but you've made a great environment.
We're all winging it, Vanessa, trust me, we're all winging it. It's just, I think it's just so nice to sit down with people who do very different things to me as well, because there's things you've said today that's made me go, oh yeah, like I need to think about that, or I could think about that first. And we're not, software based, we're a service based business, so very different, but we can all learn from each other. And I love hearing about how other people see their own creativity, because I've had my own struggles with it, whereas I listen to people and I go, oh yeah, I was like that. Yeah. I was like that as well. So I'm going to sort of take us back into like talking more about like creativity as a subject, but where would you say you feel most creative?
Probably storytelling and presenting a story through video.
Yeah.
I'm very video first story. And again, I'm no pro at video. And I now actually have my content creator, Jingwei, shout out.
She's so good, guys.
She's so good.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
But she is telling stories through video. And that's probably the most important thing for any business, is to be able to articulate a feeling. I find the best types of advertising are the ones where you're not actually shoving the product in someone's face. You're instigating an emotion, and you're saying like, this is going on Indi Local is you're going to find all these cool things, and there's a community behind it. Obviously we do like say, oh, look at our app, but storytelling is something that I think I do well.
Yeah.
My partner will probably say opposite. He says, you waffle so much and blah, blah, I'll get bored. But yeah, storytelling is probably my...
Yeah, your guys' content's really good. Like,
Thank you.
What's the Instagram handle for people who...
It's at indi.local.
Yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes as well. But yeah, go and have a look, because it's really fun, like vibrant, really good use of like just your own thinking and stuff, but then also good use of some of the trends that are coming up, and just like it's really watchable content, which is really, and then there's food obviously, so you're a bit like okay, food as well. What would you say is your, I mean, this can be work related, or you've just mentioned video, but personally, what's your favorite creative outlet? If you could do like one form of creativity, what would it be?
It's got to be dance. It's got to be choreographing a piece of dance that becomes, again, I don't know if I'm just thinking it in my own way, but to me, a piece of choreography is a piece of art.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you're choreographing, you're throwing an emotion into shapes and feelings, and like you're telling a story through your body and your face, which actually I need to work on my facial expressions.
I'd be so bad as a dancer. I'd be like, ow, ow. Oh.
Well, it's really trendy to like express, like some people sing as well when they're like miming the words, and I'm like, I can't really do that. Or
are you like proper like poker face when you dance?
But then I've had like photo shoots, and I'm like, what is my face doing? What am I doing? So I still need to learn how to like use my face. But your body is in dance is a way to express art, and that's for me probably the one thing that I will always go back to is and I often now, I say often, I've had a bit of a hiatus, but I'm back dancing again now, is after a stressful day at work, my brain is in meetings and doing this, doing that, just going to the dance studio, throwing some shapes and emptying my mind through dance is like the most relaxing thing sometimes.
I mean, I am no dancer, but I am.
You're going to be.
I'm going to be.
We're going to get you on a pole.
We're going to get me on a pole, swinging around, looking really stupid, and you'll all really enjoy it, I'm sure. You never know, I might be really good at it.
I think you will. I've seen you in the gym. I think you are going. I think you are.
The gym and pole dancing strike me as two very different.
No, it. Lift weights, and I've seen the weights you're lifting, then I think you'll be fine.
Oh dear. I'm like, when you're like, I will do this because it'll be fun, and it'll be just interesting to do. But I'm like Bridget Jones, so watch out, everyone. Do you believe that everyone is creative in some way?
Yes, I do. Even the blandest of bland people will have something that they're creative about, and it might not be expressed in drawings or music or any of the obvious. It might be in the way that they think.
Yeah, I'm so with you on this.
Yeah, the way that somebody reaches an answer or tells a story, or that is quite creative.
Yeah.
So I think everybody has creativity in them. It just looks different.
Yeah, it comes out in different ways. Like I always say, like my accountant, I'm like, you're creative because I have no idea what you just said and what you've just presented to me. And then I'll say something and she'll go, oh, well, that goes there and that goes there. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But for her, she can look at a series of numbers and go, oh, yeah, that goes there. It's the problem solving side of things sometimes. And like for you, I would say, speaking to you today, you're quite multifaceted because you've got elements of traditional creativity that are part of you. Then you've got entrepreneurial, like problem solving creativity. And then we've got the whole, persona shifting slightly. It's still you, but you know when to bring a certain version of yourself to things. So that, like I say, I think there'd be a lot of people that would think, why is Vanessa going on a podcast about creativity? Actually, it's a huge part of what you do. And the way one of the biggest ways you'll grow Indi Local is with content.
Yeah.
Right. So Vanessa, we're going to go into quick fire. No pressure. I do expect beads of sweat and sweaty hands. The first question is, if you could invite 3 creatives, dead or alive, to a dinner party, or I'm going to say to a food truck or to a pop-up, who would you invite?
Okay, so number 1 on my table at my food truck is going to be Mr. Gaudi.
Yeah.
He's the guy that designed all of the buildings in Barcelona. Very intricately designed buildings.
Yeah, I've never been. Nice. I need to go.
Oh,
yeah.
It's a big feature in Barcelona.
Okay.
So yeah, his creative brain there. And then I'd have to have a dancer because dance is a lot of my creativity. So there's this Russian dancer called Isabella, and she is very punchy with her like moves. Like she creates art that I've not seen anywhere else before in dance.
Yeah.
So yeah, her.
And is she a pole dancer?
She's a pole dancer. Yeah, pole dancer. I feel like she used to do ballet too. I think a lot of pole dancers did ballet.
There's quite it does look very balletic when you see it done well.
Balletic.
Is that a word?
It
is now. But it looks very elegant and, like the pointed feet.
Yeah,
and, I would look a bit more like French and Saunders if I did ballet, I think. I think I did do ballet. And I think my mum described it as I looked like a farmer's wife, which nothing against farmers' wives, but apparently that didn't really sound like a compliment when it came out. Okay, so we've got Gaudi, we've got Isabella.
Yeah. And my final one is very cliche, but it's going to have to be Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
Because he has created some incredible brands. He knows how to sell stories and articulate himself well. So yeah, I really want to learn how he presents himself in a room, because I've watched hours and hours and hours of him, but I think it'll be a different experience when you're actually sat with him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm a really big Stephen Bartlett fan. I would actually say I don't watch as much of the podcast anymore because it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on this as a fellow fan of his, but I found it was going a bit too much into like all the health stuff.
I was going to say,
and I'm like, no, I want the I want the business stuff. And like some of them are really out there.
Yes.
Like there was a guy who's like taking loads of pills and is like aging himself backwards.
Yes.
And for me, I Diary of a CEO was where I went for like learning and business, and I wanted to hear about the entrepreneurship and the sort of like, how did you get over the challenges? And I just found lately the content isn't giving me that. Some of them I still watch, but I'm way more selective, whereas before I'd watch every single episode.
Exactly the same complaint. It's not complaint, but it's just the tone
feedback.
has
So
changed.
Stephen, if you you're not watching, but if this ever crosses your path, just bring a bit more of the business stuff back in for us entrepreneurs out here. I mean, I've never called myself an entrepreneur before, but us business owners that are like where you were years ago. Okay, nice selection. Very intelligent table, I feel that would be.
Yeah. I mean, Isabella brings the like spicy. She's
with a bit of like pole dancing spice in there. Okay, second question, which is my favourite, is, and it's perfect for you, is if your work, and we're going to talk Indi Local here, if your work was edible, what would it taste like?
Oh, it would actually be a cocktail.
Ooh.
Because I feel like every day is different. We have like different flavors coming from different people that we cross. It probably wouldn't actually be food. It would be a cocktail.
Nice.
Although it will be complemented with some crunchy chicken wings.
Yes, just for that ASMR that we were talking about earlier.
The crunchy on the outside and then the juicy inside.
Yeah.
And then like cleaning up the bone at the end. That was probably too much information.
Not at all. I judge people by how much chicken is left on
Me
their
too.
chicken
I'm like,
wing at the
you're
end.
wasting
I'm
half.
like, there's like half a gram of protein. I'm like, eat that chicken. I remember an ex-boyfriend of mine, we went to his parents for dinner and they'd already had dinner, but we'd taken some I think we got chicken wings and salad and stuff with us. And we were sat eating and we'd not been like going out for all that long. And his dad just looked over at us and was like, yeah, you two are a really good match. Because we were both like annihilating the wings to the point where there was no meat on them whatsoever. If you're going to eat a chicken wing, you've got to eat.
You've got to have the whole thing.
Yeah.
Don't leave. Stop being a sissy.
No. I've also become quite obsessed. Do you watch Hot Things or Hot Wings on YouTube? Hot Ones. Such a good YouTube channel if you've never watched it. But it's this guy that interviews celebrities while they eat progressively hotter sauce on chicken wings. And the way some of these people eat chicken wings, man, like they're leaving half of it.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I'd be eating the whole wing. Like, what's going on there? Anyway, we could go down a whole sidetrack there. Okay, so we're going cocktail with a side of like crunchy chicken wings. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then the third and final question is, if you could give Indi Local a soundtrack for like its journey so far, is there a song or a genre that comes to mind?
Song or genre? It's going to be some sort of like summery, upbeat, like happy. I mean, I'm not a Calvin Harris fan, but I feel like it's like a party.
Like, watch out, Calvin. She's going to be featuring on one of your next tunes.
Yeah, I'm trying to reinvigorate the fun of going out and eating. It's an experience. It's not just fueling your body. It's going out with friends, meeting the vendors, talking about their stories, having a little boogie to Calvin Harris.
Yeah, love it. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much. It's been really nice for me because I know of you. I think we've passed each other at like the marketing meetup a couple of times, but I've never had a proper chance to actually talk to you properly. It's been really nice to sit down and get to know a bit more about you and what you're doing. And I love what you're doing. So I will be watching and cheerleading very heavily from the sidelines. And maybe, who knows?
And pole dancing one.
Yeah. I mean, can't believe that's going to go out on the internet.
Studio.
Yeah, we will do that. We will seriously do that. We'll get a camera involved because there's going to need to be evidence of that, I think. I will humiliate myself for the benefit of all 10 of you who are probably listening to this. But yeah, thank you. It's been a real pleasure having you. And thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks. Bye.